Captain Midnight.
This video is brought to you by CuriosityStream. So it's been a surprisingly long time since I've covered an episode of Rick and Morty on this channel. Almost a year actually. But with the new season right around the corner, I figured that this week might be the perfect time to talk about my favorite episode the series ever did. Season 2's Total Rickall. Maybe that's a controversial pick, I don't know. But obviously there are a lot of great episodes of the show, especially in those first two seasons. But for me, this is Rick and Morty operating at the absolute height of its power. Everything that makes the show funny and interesting is on display here, so I thought it more than deserved its own video. But before I get into it, feel free to post your favorite episodes in the comments. Oh, and also, like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Anyway, let's talk Total Rickall.
Oh, we have to help people.
Oh my god, it's one of those facehuggers from the Alien movie!
For those who don't remember, this is the episode that sees Rick have to lock down the house because there's a self-multiplying alien parasite loose that creates false memories so no one suspects them. It's a pretty incredible hook for an episode, and the writers even admit that it was created by combining two different storylines from pop culture. Writer Mike McMahon was initially inspired by Season 5 of TV's Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I guess this is a 2-decade-old spoiler warning for those who haven't seen the show, but basically Season 5 is the year that they added Buffy's little sister, Dawn, but they had all the characters react to her as if they had known her for the entire show. It's a long, kind of convoluted story, but basically some monks used magic to implant false memories of her in the whole cast's heads, so they were completely unaware of what Dawn really was. Mike thought this was a really interesting, creepy idea and pitched it as the foundation of an episode. But they didn't stop there. Where that Buffy season is about evil gods and hell dimensions, Rick and Morty went in a very different direction, looking to John Carpenter's The Thing as the skeleton to put on top of that idea. That film, starring Kurt Russell, sees a team of researchers in Antarctica who are picked off one by an alien who can mimic their appearance, creating a horror classic built on pure paranoia. Now, the idea of doing an episode of TV that's riffing on The Thing is hardly anything new. One of the best early X-Files episodes, Ice, actually rips it off completely. That's not even really a knock on the X-Files. Carpenter's The Thing is already a remake of an older film, itself based on a 1938 John W. Campbell Jr. novella called Who Goes There? In short, this is already very, very well-trodden territory, and for good reason. It's basically the perfect setup for a horror story. But by adding the false memory idea on top of this well-worn setup, Rick and Morty was able to deliver an episode that feels absurdist and fresh, setting itself apart from the mountain of Thing-inspired episodes of TV through the years. I think what I love most about the episode is that it manages to distill almost everything the show is good at into one episode. In a way, it functions as the whole of Rick and Morty in miniature, with nearly all the best elements of the show present in one way or another. The unique twist on an old sci-fi trope, the melancholy and sadness that's always lingering just below the surface, and the completely absurdist humor, with the animation allowing them to get away with gags that just wouldn't be possible in live action. If this episode is remembered best for anything, it's for the sheer amount of goofy characters that they're able to introduce through this parasite story. I really love this element of it because it allows the show to indulge in these really clever Family Guy style cutaways while still having them move a compelling story forward, which is kind of genius if you think about it. People criticize the Family Guy cutaways for being pure time filler, which I always thought was a little overly harsh, at least when the cutaways are clever. But this episode is able to use that sort of structure to serve a narrative purpose. There's a lot of great little characters here. Personally, I think Frankenstein gets a lot of the best punchlines.
Sorry, Summer!
I was on the wrong side of the pitchfork on this one.
But if I had to choose a favorite, I think I'm going with Sylvester. It's such a goofy, dumb idea for a character, so when they do a great job of selling that Rick actually considers him a really close friend, not gonna lie, it's actually a pretty well done emotional moment. The Sleepy Gary storyline is also a lot of fun. At least 30% of the show has always been about finding new ways to humiliate Jerry, and him believing immediately that he's a parasite is a great gag. They also insert Sleepy Gary into both Beth and Jerry's love life, having him be Beth's husband and secretly Jerry's lover. and it becomes really clear that they both love him more than they've ever really loved each other. It's almost cruel how many times Rick and Morty shows us that these two would be so much happier apart. But it's still a show that wants to maintain the status quo of the existing family dynamics. So they shake things up later on, but at the end of the day, it feels like Jerry and Beth are trapped together, even if that makes all the characters miserable. It's dark, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't make for really good comedy. Speaking of darkness, I think this episode was one of the first that actually takes Beth's alcoholism kind of seriously. Another great idea that the writers came up with is that our leads only know who's real and who's a parasite because the parasites are unable to create negative memories. And the core family has plenty of those to go around, like Jerry almost letting Beth get stabbed by a homeless man, Rick nearly letting Morty die constantly, and in one of the most uncomfortable scenes in the episode, Beth being too drunk in the morning to drive Summer to school and accidentally hitting her in the face with a wine bottle. Season 1 Beth was one of the lesser characters on the show, and I really like that Season 2 went out of its way to give her more of her own demons too. And since I'm touching on Beth, I guess I should talk about another fan favorite character in this episode, Mr. Poopybutthole. This was such a simple and brutally effective joke. His name and voice are so goofy, and he's introduced like 1 second after Rick explains the parasites, so of course we go most of the episode thinking that he's the original parasite. Beth understandably leaps to that conclusion too, so she shoots him only to reveal he's just a nice, weird little guy who never meant anyone any harm. They play these scenes completely straight, letting the realistic horror of the situation be the punchline, as Beth rushes to the kitchen in a panic trying to drown her stress in a glass of wine. It's a pretty dark ending, because of course it is. In most plots built on the outline of the thing, there's at least some sense of happiness or normalcy that's returned once the alien is gone. That's definitely the case in the X-Files, if not the thing itself. Rick and Morty kind of refuses to give us that. The family is forced to take out everyone they have positive memories of, leaving them to stew with each other, the ones in the house who continuously let each other down. I'd probably be going overboard if I said it was a haunting ending. After all, the episode ends with Rick shouting one of his goofy new catchphrases. But it is one that's stuck with me, taking the story up a notch and sealing the deal on what was my favorite Rick and Morty story. The show has done a lot since then, most of it pretty great, but for me, nothing has been able to top Total Rickall. An episode where almost every punchline lands, which manages to have a tight, well-written script and weird, absurdist humor at the same time, and reveals just how deep the issues in this very screwed-up family go. In my mind, it's the defining episode of Rick and Morty. If you enjoyed hearing me talk some Rick and Morty and are in the mood for more, I actually have a whole other video covering the show's title sequence, along with one on Cheers on my streaming video service, Nebula. And I'm far from alone. H-Bomber Guy has covered True Detective, Extra Credits has covered Cowboy Bebop, and way more. Nebula is doing an amazing job of giving creators an alternative to YouTube and its algorithm. Plus, Nebula and CuriosityStream come bundled together in a great deal. That's where I watched The Worlds of Philip K. Dick, a really great documentary that covers the work and massive influence of the beloved sci-fi author. If you have any interest in science fiction at all, this is definitely worth checking out. And combine that with CuriosityStream's documentary on nature, science, and tech, and you have a really great offer. You can get all of this for $14.79. That's not for a month, that's for the whole year, part of their 26% discount. So get the deal now by going to curiositystream.com/captainmidnight. That's curiositystream.com/captainmidnight.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once, because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started, because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.